Thank you for joining us this week on The Tongue with Dr. Myke. I'm so glad you're back with us again. Don't forget to check our website out, thetonguespeakslife.com, where you can check all our podcasts from before. And if you want to check all of our topics out, go to p346.org, which is Psalm 34:6 Ministries. All of our topics are on there. The Tongue with Dr. Myke, Pillars of Heaven. Make sure you're checking that out. Thetonguespeakslife.com, where you can find out about Cure International. Man, if you haven't gotten on Cure International yet, go over to that site. Check it out. You can donate directly to that organization. You can donate directly to The Tongue with Dr. Myke or Pillars of Heaven or Psalm 346 Ministries. And as we continue to grow and as our podcast is going out globally, thank you to everybody that's listening and joining us. Welcome. If it's the first time, welcome for the first time. If not, welcome back. Today in the studio, we have a total different dynamic, and this is a great thing for The Tongue with Dr. Myke, because in the studio I have my sister and my nephew, my sister Julie. Welcome, Julie.
Hey.
There she is. And my nephew Jacob.
Hello.
Jacob's been on the show before, and he's welcoming himself back. Welcome back.
It's good to be back.
That's
I'm not
good.
on a phone this time.
All right, good. Yeah, you got to be closer up there. There we go. All right. And so today we're going to talk about a couple different things, and we're going to shoot from the hip, and we're going to talk about what's the first thing that comes to mind.
Oh, that's way too much pressure.
What do you mean? All right. All right. We'll talk about whatever is not shoot from the hip. We'll do shoot from the leg. Not from the leg? All right.
Not from the leg.
All right. All right. So anyway, I'm glad they're in the studio. I want to talk about one of the things we talked about earlier on Pillars of Heaven today was Angel Studios. And I know Angel Studios makes The Chosen. Do you guys watch The Chosen?
See clips of it?
I do. I haven't seen it. I'm not caught up or anything.
All right. What about you?
I see clips on TikTok, but I never watched it.
You need to watch the show. The show is super,
Good.
super awesome. I talk about it constantly on this show. Over and over. Season 4 is coming out next year.
I think I'm on season 2.
Season 2, yeah.
really
Season 3. Season 3 is actually really good. You can't really get through an episode without it touching a nerve at some part of your life. It's done very well. Some of the people here differ on their opinions on it. But Jacob, if you've never seen that, that's something you need to invest in. It's on Peacock. It's free. The first 2 seasons are there. It's on Apple TV. You can go right to Angel.
It's on, I think.
Angel has its own
app.
Yeah, you can go right on the app and watch
free.
it there.
Yeah.
It's definitely worth that. Actually, when I was watching the show, it showed a scene that I thought was totally blown out of proportion, and I thought it had no business being in there. I had no idea it ever happened.
I asked you about that.
What are you
'Cause I listened to. I heard that podcast, and I was like, "What?" I was just asking what you were referring to.
Yeah, it's the one scene in there that I never knew happened in the Bible.
What?
Well, if you haven't seen it, it's in season 3. I'm not going to get to it. I won't tell you what it is, but it's a scene where it's after he reads something in the temple, and he's telling them that prophecy is fulfilled right now as he's saying it, and what they do to him afterwards. I never knew that. I never knew, and then I had to look it up, and then sure enough, like one of my daily readings, I just read through it, and I'm like, oh my goodness, it actually was in there. And it doesn't go into a lot of detail with it, but there is a part there that's very, very captivating, and it's very, like, you can imagine the scene there and the impact it must have had. And this is
now.
Yeah, it's good. If you haven't started season 3, I don't want to get into it because the end of season 3 is super awesome also.
Okay.
And I don't want to, give that away, but everyone knows what happens in the Bible, but
Yeah.
I'm just saying. But Angel Studios is bringing about not just The Chosen. They have an entire lineup this year alone with like 10 or 12 different projects that are coming out. They just did one called His Only Son, and that was in the theaters, and that was about Abraham. And that one, it passed $11 million on it already. and that's about Abraham and taking his son up and sacrificing Isaac, and that's going to be super cool. I didn't get to check that out, but there's another movie coming out, and we talked about this on Pillars today, and it's with Jim Caviezel, which is
I know who that is.
He's the one who played Jesus in Passion of the Christ, and he's saying this is one of his most important projects since that movie, and this is called Sounds of Freedom, and this is about child trafficking throughout the world, and it's super important, and it's super hot topic right now. And if you go to angel.com right now, you can actually get tickets to it for free, or you can go on there and donate for other people to go on there and get it for free, like a pay it forward kind of thing. Yeah. So it's definitely cool. It's a movie that's coming out that is very controversial. It's coming out on the 4th of July, and it's going to be super awesome. So if you haven't had plans to check that out. But they also have a full lineup coming out this year of some animated stuff and some documentaries and some things about life after death. Angel Studios is moving light speeds ahead, and it's actually disrupting Hollywood because they're doing such great things. And
well, not to interrupt you, but
too late.
The acting. Well, I mean, I should say I'm fine interrupting you.
Yeah, that's fine.
But the acting is pretty good. I mean, usually I feel like anything I've seen faith-based is it just seems
cheesy, right?
Corny. And the acting is terrible.
Yeah.
Low budget.
Very low budget.
Kind of a little bit different.
Well, The Chosen wasn't like that, so I was worried that since it wasn't like that, it would have a twist on it that wasn't real.
Yeah, it would. Yeah, I know what you mean.
I was worried it looks too good to not be messed with by Hollywood.
Yeah, I agree. It's good though. You should watch it.
Yeah, I want to. There was like you were saying about something that you didn't know. We went to see Sight and Sound. I don't know where your viewers are from or listening from mainly, but in Pennsylvania and Lancaster, they have Sight and Sound. For anyone who doesn't know, and they do a bunch of cool plays and stuff, all biblical reenactments, stuff like that. They have live animals. But we went and saw David. I didn't know that David killed other giants, not just Goliath. There was I think his brothers. I'm pretty sure it's his brothers. I thought it was just Goliath. He killed more giants.
Oh.
It wasn't just Goliath. I had no idea until I saw the play, and I was like, did that really happen? Did I just not know that?
Oh, that's weird.
Yeah, I felt pretty stupid after that. Wow. Well, now I know.
Well, you should.
Yeah.
I don't want to. They're actually making Sight and Sound is doing a show on Daniel. They made one before, but they're doing one that's coming out next year that's been 4 years in the making, and it's going to be super. Everyone's looking forward to it. It's going to be super in depth, and we were talking about David today about. On Pillars of Heaven about where that saying share and share alike came from. And that's David's story is pretty awesome if you don't know it. And David was, anointed to be king, but then he didn't become king right away. So, I mean, that whole story with King Saul and Jonathan, hey, you guys need to, if you haven't read that story, just dig into it. It's super, and then once he's king, he's not he's human, and he goes through a ton of I think he breaks every law that you're not supposed to break, and from you name it, he breaks it, and his story is super crazy because he loves God throughout this entire thing, and he always comes back to him, and God blesses him. But yeah, David is a crazy story to read for sure.
Yeah.
So. Now Jacob is back in town. He doesn't live here any longer. He's moved away. Are you going to churches down there? Are you finding where are you at?
I found one down there.
What kind of church?
Just a normal Christian church, but I don't know. When I say normal, I mean it's Southern, so it's.
Is it Baptist?
No, it's just louder.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
It's just louder. There's more praise and worship, and then there's not as much of the pastor speaking, but it's a good service.
Just praise?
Yeah, there's a lot more of that. Well, the church is trying to do like a revival type thing right now, so they do more praise and worship. Like once a month, they actually have a long service, like instead of like morning and later morning, whatever, not even afternoon, but they just have like a one that's in between that's like pretty long, and it's all praise and worship.
Oh, that's
do that
cool.
once a month.
Yeah.
But yeah, I found that down there. There's a church every 5 minutes down there.
Well, yeah, you're in the belt down there.
Yeah, it could be like a legitimate church to a shack with that says church on it. You know what I mean? Like there's churches everywhere.
When I got my PhD, we went to a church in Florida because I graduated with a pastor of this small church in Florida, and you want to talk about way out in the middle of nowhere, shackish.
Yeah,
very loud and very to say the least. That message and that service was something like I've never seen before.
I remember you telling.
And experienced. Yeah, that's pretty crazy. And if you don't, then you're not used to that. It takes an adjustment to do that.
Yeah, well, when I went to this church, I saw somebody that I work with that also goes, and he was like, yeah, come sit with me, whatever. Like, I was like, yeah, sure, yeah. He's sitting in the front row. So I'm like, I didn't know, but he's like the one person I know. So I end up sitting in the front row like every time I go now. When he's there, when he's not there, I'm like, or some like 1 week he'll do security, whatever, like that. I'll sit in the back, but for the most part, I'm front row there, and it was like kind of an experience because my first time was when they did that long service.
Oh, so
and I was like, what kind of? Yeah, there was no message. It was all praise and worship. So I was like, is this like normal? He was like, no, it's just this week. I was like, okay, but that was my first like impression of Southern churches, just loud, and everybody was like crowding the stage and stuff. Like there was a huge turnout because you got morning
like
and the
church?
after morning. Like yeah, they were overfilled. Like there was people didn't have seats, but no one was sitting. Everyone was up and standing.
Do you like it? Do you like that?
Yeah, well, I prefer, a little quieter, but
yeah, it's a big adjustment.
Yeah, I prefer quieter, but it's still good, the pastor's good. Everybody there's nice. The people I bought my house from told me about that church. So that's cool. I haven't been to any other ones, so I'm kind of committed to this one now, but they're cool. They have like things that they throw, like food events and stuff like that. They get
involved
barbecue.
in the community.
Yeah, like I go on Wednesdays and stuff. I'll go out to their barbecues or whatever they have on Saturdays sometimes.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's cool. It's a cool community. But did you guys hear about they found saints that were like the bodies of them weren't decomposed?
No.
They found them where? In the South?
No. This is like unrelated.
They?
I don't even know they. I just
okay.
It's one of those things I just like just saw. Like they found like the bodies of other saints and stuff aren't fully decomposed like at all. Like you can still see their face and stuff.
That's weird.
I don't know. I mean, like Muhammad and all them, like Buddha, like their
dead and
remains
gone.
are gone.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But the saints are preserved.
I didn't hear that. I'll have to check into that one.
Something I heard recently. So
yeah,
look into that.
I will. I'll check into that for sure. There's there's a lot. I just did a special. I don't want to say a special. I did a topic on what happened to the other apostles after and how they died. And I mean, these people were tortured and yeah, it was painful death. One of them was saw in half.
I didn't know that.
Oh yeah,
I didn't
there's
know that
yeah, some were crucified. Yeah, you got to check it out. It's
well, the one got crucified upside down.
Yeah,
because like satanic people, like these like the upside down cross, because they'll like do everything backwards or whatever. It's like satanic. So upside down crosses are like, it's actually because someone didn't want to die the same way that Jesus did because he didn't feel worthy, so he wanted to be crucified upside down.
Excuse me.
Really, it's the upside down cross is that.
Oh my God.
Not really
No.
a satanic thing, but yeah.
Yeah, but it's very interesting to find out. I mean, the Bible only talks about, I think two others, but the rest you've have to go through your history and find out. And a lot of it's story, but you have to be discerning about which is which. But they've all, other than the author of Revelation, who we know died like from old age. The rest of them went through a lot of suffering for what they believe, and that stuff is going on right now all over the world. And it's gone. We have pastors that we talk to in Africa and Sudan and the Philippines and India and Pakistan, and these people are just getting flat out slaughtered just because of their religion. And if you believe we are in the end times, we know that at a certain point there's going to be an all-out war on Christians. And that brings up a debate where we talk about Jesus coming back and rapturing the church, and some people believe it's before the tribulation, and other people believe it's after
it
the
not
tribulation.
When it is.
Nobody knows when he's coming. The angels don't know, but there's scripture there that you can read into and say, oh, okay, so we won't be here for that. And then there's other scripture that says that you could interpret as, oh, okay, maybe we are here for that, and we see some of that. There's different views. We're going to do an actual show on it, like a special on it, and have some people. I'd love to have Eric on here and have him talk about it also. But I'm going to surprise him. So if he's listening, I'm just going to call him up one day and say, hey, man, I need you for like an hour. And then I'm just going to call him and put him on the show live.
Oh, he'll love that.
That's how I got him last time.
No heads up.
Yeah.
No context.
Yeah. Oh, that's how.
John, put these on.
That's what I did to him last time.
I heard that one.
Yeah, that was good.
He was like, I have no idea why.
He's like, and who are you? And why am I here? And then I was like, oh man, we'll talk about some stuff. It'll be fun. He's like, okay. And we did. That was probably one of my most popular shows ever. He's a good sport.
Yeah.
But there's so there's people that are, and we talk to my pastors over there, and there's war going on right now, and people are being persecuted just for having a Bible or worshiping or doing whatever. But we talk about constantly us being in this end times, and if you think that we're in these end times, then we know things are going to start to get rapidly on the decline, and more and more things are going to come about. And one of these things is these false prophets and these false teachings and people leading others away from the true message of Christ and the cross, and them watering down their message to adhere to a certain crowd or adhere to a certain lifestyle or adhere to saying this is okay. And that's going to happen more. And there's going to be more people coming on with new religions and new ways to trick you and deceive you to get you away from this message. So
I think I think it's bad now, but I think that it can get a lot worse than people think.
it's going to get much worse. Yeah.
If you think this is bad, yeah, it is, but it's not going to get better. I mean, there's talk like with the, not the UN, there's that forum, the economic forum, talking about, implants and all, and not just that. I mean, universal, not just currency, universal religion. I mean, it's all predecessors to what's coming. It's only going to get worse until it's terrible, and I think that's when it's going to happen, but no one really knows. But it's like, if you think it's bad now, it's not going to get better. Like, you'll know when it's bad.
What would you say, because that opens up to so much topic to discuss. What would you say is like something about Christianity that you wish you understood more? Like, is there one area or something that you don't fully understand or that you're trying to work yourself through? And that's for both of you.
I would say probably there's so many different interpretations of what God is like and what Jesus was like. Like, I know in that show, it's a lot of, like, I've heard him described as like a hippie Jesus in that show.
Which show?
The Chosen.
Oh, okay.
Not that I agree with that, but he is very like mellow and down to earth and very likable. But then, like, when you read the Old Testament and you read stuff that God did, and you're like, it just doesn't seem the same to me.
Before or after the flood, though? Because
it's before. I mean,
after the flood, the promise about never hurting humanity like that again.
Well,
with the
just
rainbow.
like-
So she's talking
like,
about
it just doesn't
the portrayal
always line up.
of a weak or timid Jesus.
He's not. It's not that he's not weak. I wouldn't say he's weak.
But you're not seeing him as a warrior. And
But
this,
he seems only loving. And
Yeah.
then when you read about God in the Old Testament specifically, it's a lot of God's anger and wrath and, God hardened their hearts, or God caused, like when they're in the desert, the Israelites. And I think it says something like I can't remember. I remember reading it and thinking it was weird. Like, he caused them to be a certain way or I can't remember exactly, but it's hard to understand because you compare it to like the only, like a father that you have as a human, but like, can you imagine your father doing things like taking out their wrath on, you know what I mean? Like, it just, it's hard to, that's something that's hard for me to understand.
Well, that's him dealing with sin also. And remember now, and that's why the Jews don't believe, a lot of the Jews don't believe that Jesus is the Messiah, because they were waiting for someone to come back and overthrow the Roman Empire and to establish this kingdom on earth and to vindicate them and to annihilate. And here comes this, not hippie Jesus, but timid and loving. And
well, he's just very like, I don't know, someone else called him a hippie Jesus. It wasn't me. But, he does seem very like in the show. I mean, I like the way they portray him. I'm wondering how accurate it is.
Yeah.
If he was fun. Like, he went to the wedding and he was fun. Like, he was dancing. I wonder, they don't go into so much detail about what his personality was really like as far as like interacting as a person with other people. So yeah, I don't know. I think that's kind of like, I always wonder how accurate that portrayal is and how they kind of
make the...
how
You were saying you made them feel a certain way when they were in the desert? The Jews?
I can't remember what it was.
So I remember they were saying like they actually missed being slaves.
Yeah, it was something about the serpents where they came and bit them.
Mm-hmm. That's because of you have to remember now, these people have been freed from slavery, out of bondage for hundreds of years, and now they're being led out into a land where God's promised them, and all they are doing is complaining.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
so they're
they missed
complaining,
being slaves.
right? And there's over and over of them saying, "Why did you take us out of Egypt? We're better off going back there where there was food and there was water."
Yeah.
And so now God's taking them. You realize when they cross the promised land, none of those people that were in bondage are there.
Right, yeah. And I remember you guys talked about this on one of the other shows. I think what it was is that he sent the serpents. That's what I thought was weird. Because you don't think of God as, you always say, God doesn't want anything bad to happen to you. He doesn't want you to endure trials that are, or danger or whatever. Or God doesn't cause bad things to happen to you. He's with you during them, But then when the Bible says stuff like that, where it's like he sent snakes to bite them and most of them died, that's the part where I'm like, well, that just doesn't really line up with...
It's also, I mean, if you read that entire thing, read about what's going on and read about what remember now...
Yeah, taking it out of context.
Well, remember now, they've been shown. You've just gone through Egypt with all these miraculous things that you've witnessed, and now you're being led through the desert in the day by a cloud to keep you cool, and at night by a pillar of fire, which are all supernatural things that you're witnessing. And still, at the end of it, they're getting food from heaven. Their clothes don't wear out, right? And still, over and over, not just the complaining, but it's now making false image and constantly doubting, right? And constantly falling away. And, when it says that part, now remember, God works everything for good also. So he brought these, those snakes are out there, and now these people are looking for, that foreshadows Christ on the pole also, right? So,
I mean, I'm not saying they didn't deserve it,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It just seems like one of those instances where it's hard to, I don't know. It seems like he was an angry God a lot of times in the Old Testament. Does that?
I know what you're saying, but you got to remember God is love, right? And, the God and sin cannot, he can't just tolerate sin. Right. So I've had this conversation with people that were like, well, how can I serve a God of the Old Testament where he took them to this new land and totally annihilated these other people? You know what I mean?
Mass genocide.
To exterminate all of these people, and it's interesting theological discussions that we have about that stuff.
That's the weird thing to think about too. Like when did stuff like that stop? You know what I mean? Like, it's like us and like our
because that
kind of recent ancestors and stuff, like great grandparents, like they didn't have to go through anything like that sort of thing. Like where God,
was it after Jesus died?
Yeah. Did everything stop after that, or was there other?
What do you mean?
Like, was there other things like not like?
Like seeing the things of the Old Testament.
Yeah, like visual.
Yeah, there's been a silence period. And now you're going to see that, and the Bible talks about the end times where these signs and wonders are going to start to happen again, and people are going to dream dreams, and this is all going to start back up again.
So does the kids, actually.
Yeah.
Kids do too, and also Christian people as well. Not mainly, but Muslims. Like there's stories in the middle of the desert, like ministries going out, like trying to deliver Bibles and trucks and stuff in like Afghanistan or Iraq, somewhere like that. Mm-hmm. And these two guys come running towards trucks or whatever, and they ask about they have Bibles, and they're like hesitant to tell them until they tell them that they had visions. Like everybody in the town had the same dream about visions of two trucks coming full of Bibles, or maybe two guys in one truck with Bibles, something along the lines of that. But it came in a vision, the whole town.
And that's going to happen more and more the closer we get, to Jesus coming back. But now imagine, that's where all of this is starting. You're going to see all that stuff, and imagine how easy it's going to be to sway people away if you've got command of nature, right? And you're doing these supernatural things, and they're like, I'm the Christ.
It's supposed to be the greatest deception ever.
Right. And just think
when you hear that, that there's other stuff that the government does as well. That there's documents talking about faking a rapture.
Yeah, I've seen them.
Really?
I've seen them.
Project Bluebeam.
Yeah.
It's projections. They fake the rapture. But think about it. We were talking about New World Order, One World Religion. Getting a chip implant, stuff like that. All your currencies digitalized, whatever. What better way to usher that in than getting everyone on your side? But you can't argue with what you see.
Well, think of how they're going to explain the actual event when people, like three of us sitting in a room.
Aliens. They're already.
That's one.
They're already.
Yeah.
drawing so much attention to UFOs and like.
That's why I think that's
recently
going to be a
there's big
huge
uptick.
one. I think that's going to be huge. I think they'll say something about your blood type and solar flares and radiation. I think that's going to be another one. Or maybe we parts of the world get nuked and your blood type, whatever, you vaporize, whatever. But however they explain it, there's going to be someone there because it's going to be mass chaos. Especially you're flying a plane and you're a Christian, all of a sudden you vanish. Right, and there's thousands of airlines in the sky at any time, or there's millions of cars on the road at any time, and
Just the catastrophe.
And you
Yeah.
said that
Stuff
they're
like
gonna
that.
you're gonna equate, or they're going to equate that to your blood type and stuff, and they're
who knows what they're gonna say.
there's no way to know, and that's the scary part too.
The thing is that they're gonna try and explain away what just happened.
It'll be science
Yeah, it'll be science, and then it's gonna be super easy for someone to come on the scene and say,
unexplained.
"Here's what happened," and everyone's worried and scared. But don't be worried,
Well,
because I have the answers for how we're gonna get through this.
We saw this with COVID.
Yeah.
People were desperate for
Oh, yeah.
someone
to have the answer.
any answer, even if it was a ridiculous answer, people were just so quick to accept it
Yeah,
because they
it's-
need a leader in those times.
Right.
They get desperate, and I feel like people will believe anything when they need an answer,
I agree.
even if it doesn't make sense.
I don't think that the vaccine's like the mark of the beast or anything like that, but.
No, that's
say-
not what I meant.
No, I know. I'm just saying. I'm saying that to lead up into what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That stuff though, with the vaccines, I think was a way to. It was a test run. To see how people would react to something being pushed out like that.
A lot of people think
Could
that
be, yeah.
there's a lot of rabbit holes to go down that say that was a trial run. Because now, if you remember how serious they were about you have to do this now and you have to do that, and now they've abandoned all that.
Yeah,
It's no longer a global emergency. It's no longer
Yep.
required for you to take this vaccine, which they're finding has all this problems it's causing in people.
The military was kicking people out for not getting it, and now it's not a requirement to even get in.
Yeah, exactly. So
Same with hospitals. I could be wrong about
same
that.
with the crisis at the border where they were coming over and they had to
That
get.
still happens.
Well, that's still happening,
Well, I
but
have
them being vaccinated,
Yeah, I have
that
a fr-
requirement's
I
gone.
have a friend who was working in like a pediatric. She's a pediatric nurse
Down there.
down south,
Oh boy.
and she was, I think she was fired, let go because she wouldn't get it.
I know a lot of
And
people that
then-
quit because they wouldn't.
But
get it.
recently they've called her,
Yeah, called her back.
begging her to come back. Even like you don't have to get it.
Yeah, good for her.
I know things have changed. I know it's not the same virus it was,
But do you remember the panic and the shock? I mean, nobody knew what was going on.
literally what they were saying as an explanation didn't make sense, and what
No.
people needed to do, and people were like, yes, I believe this.
Yeah.
Whatever you say, like, yes, and let's move this, let's move past it.
And look at the hatred for the people that argued about
That's
that.
even like a cultural thing now in
They-
general. Like, you
Yeah.
have to believe what you can't even believe what you want.
Right.
Because they would argue, the people that didn't know anything about it would be the most adamant to argue for it, which is the craziest thing.
Right.
Well, think about let's just use the vaccine as an example, right? Let's say that's still mandated, right? And now not only do you have to have it, but the people who don't have it are labeled as the outcasts and the troublemakers and a danger and a threat to your life. So
They
they
even
Yeah.
did.
but
That's what they did.
But
Yeah.
right, but let's now let's give them incentive to turn you in or somebody in that is not vaccinated.
Or if you have some kind of chip or whatever,
Right.
you can't buy any groceries anymore.
Well,
or,
that's-
you're not
that's
welcome
coming.
here if you're not.
Right, and we know that when that
like
mark
that.
of the beast comes, you won't be able to buy and sell, and you will be looked as the outcast and the enemy and the problem. And use World War II as an example of all the millions of Jews that woke up one day and were herded into cattle cars and said, we're taking you away here for your protection, and we're doing this so that you're safe in your own environment, and they're leading them out to slaughter fields, right? So it's not an uncommon thing to think that, you know, we could wake up tomorrow and there could be knocks at the door and people there in full gear, SWAT teams saying, get out of your house. You have to get in this van and go. And they're moving you to a safe neighborhood, whatever. You have that life could change immediately. And you saw that happen with this pandemic.
I think
Put people in
it's
cages, and
slowly.
even now in China, they still do it. They still put people in cages and wheel people out. But it was everywhere when it was peak. I mean, those countries that were like that were kicking down doors to vaccinate people. I mean, kicking down doors. The fact that now, even in China, because they have facial recognition for everything and all that. So, I mean, they still are actively imprisoning people. And even the people that aren't in prison are still in prison, technically. I mean, their houses aren't houses. They're half of a room. Yeah. You can't stand up in them. You open the door, you lay in your bed, and you have about 2 feet ahead of you and like 6 foot deep. You're like sleeping in a coffin. And that's how they live there. Well,
look at these other countries. I don't want to, because I have listeners in these countries, but in certain countries, if you don't have a picture of your leader on the wall, you go to jail. Yeah. Or there's other countries where you're told what you can do and what you can listen to, what you can eat and what you can do. You're told you cannot leave that nation. You're told you cannot leave and do whatever. You're a prisoner in your own country. And that's now. That's just normal everyday life now. You know what I mean? So imagine that another global catastrophe happens, and now you're seeing signs and wonders of stuff you've read about in the Old Testament happening, and you've got one or two people commanding these things. Yeah, it's going to be super easy to be like, oh, they must have the answers, and that leads you up to Antichrist and him setting himself up in the temple and declaring himself God, and it ushers all that final stuff in, so there's so much. I mean, we've done shows with Revelation and stuff like that and end times, and there's just so much in there to unpack, and it's very confusing and it's very scary at some points. But you have to realize we do a section 2 called "What are the odds?" and we just did that today. What are the odds of this happening? And here's the odds of this happening. And 99% of the things that are told or said in this book have come true already. And we're on the final chapters of what this says will happen. We just did one that was called "What are the odds that Jesus himself fulfilled only 8 of the hundreds of prophecies about the Messiah"? What were the odds that one man could fulfill only 8 of those prophecies? And the odds were 1 in 100 trillion that he would fulfill only 8 of the hundreds of predictions about, or the 100 prophecies about the Messiah, right? So that, and you take that in the conjunction with all the other odds about where the Messiah is born, and you'll have to listen to that show of Pillars to find out that more. Yeah. But that's a thing we do called "What are the odds?" And so that being predicted and Jesus fulfilling all that stuff, and this Bible telling you what to look out for and how to take care of yourself and what's going to happen, and the things it said that would happen that have happened. I mean, this is a scary time, and it's not for believers. It's not a scary time for believers. It's a scary time for what's going to happen in human history, and what's going to happen on this planet.
Scary,
It's not even. It's not just that. It's also like people as well that, like you're friends with and you could be friends with, but like don't believe in it.
I'll tell you what. I lost friends over the vaccine. I lost friends over that. Just about, whether I was for it or against it, and they were for it or against it. And they were like, well, you're stupid.
Because the people
okay.
that are against it don't care if you're for it or not. They only care, if about your.
Well, it had nothing to
people
do
that-
with the vaccine.
Right.
Right,
Talking
but the
about
people that are for
vaccine.
the people that are for it look at the people that aren't for it, and you're like shunned. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
So people that don't care don't care. The people that
I
care
just-
care. You know what I mean? They draw the line in the sand.
Well, that's just one example, and the
Yeah.
vaccine is one. So yeah, will there be?
Like
But in this
politics.
case, like
Yeah,
you're worried about
exactly.
somebody. Like I just had a friend die recently. I didn't tell you guys. He died. Like I met him in last year in school, and
What happened?
well, I'm not gonna get into details, but he died. It was like out of nowhere. It was kind of tragic, like a week ago. But I just saw him a month ago, first time in like a year and a half. He was telling me all the stuff he wanted to do, blah blah blah.
Yeah,
And then just like that, he's gone.
go on.
But it makes you think like how fast it could happen, and I don't know if he was religious or not. I'd hope so. I think he might have been, but you don't know. But if the people that you do know and are friends with, that aren't, you worry about them.
And I think sometimes I feel bad about not being a better example. Like a lot of my friends. Well, you kind of grow as you. I
Oh,
have
yeah, you-
recently, but I look
yeah.
back and I'm like,
I look back at that
I
too.
was no different than anybody
Yeah.
I know. They would never have learned anything from me.
Same. Oh, 100%.
And I feel
same.
bad about that. But you kind of have to get where you are when you get where you are. It takes
Yeah.
life experience and time, and
You can think about the people you had contact with over your whole life.
that's what I mean.
Yeah,
It's like,
and yeah, and
and then for them to say, look at my life as an example of Christianity. I mean, I was definitely not the best example.
Well, neither
a
was
lot
I.
of times.
neither was I at all.
Really?
Yeah. So I mean, but you know what? This is a journey that everybody's on, and not everybody's on the same journey, and some journeys are longer than others. And the important thing is that you're on the journey, and as you learn and you grow, then you change and you grow, and you actually learn and you change things, and you. I have friends that will, no matter what I say, or just don't want to hear what I have to say.
Yeah.
And you know what? That's okay with me.
Fine. I mean, that's
Yeah.
they're right completely, but it
But your job as a Christian is to tell them what's right, not to persuade them. And that's the problem I had my whole life was, okay, I've got this guilt over. I'm trying to bring them over to Christ, or
I don't
that's-
think you should have guilt.
there is no guilt.
Yeah.
Your job is to tell them that's your job.
Their jobs,
Right, and only God can change that heart, or they're going to make a decision on their own. But your job is to tell them the truth. That's it.
In other religions, it's not like that. It's more pushed, or physically sometimes.
Who really believes something that from it being forced down their throat? I mean,
But to that,
Well,
that's,
think about-
that's the
That
message.
turns
That's
you
how you
But
off.
follow it.
think about it. If that's all you've ever been told your whole life from
don't know
this
any
big,
different, yeah.
from the time you could understand anything, you were told, you know what? Every day you're going to get up and eat an apple, and you're going to stare at the moon, and you're
I
going
mean-
to eat an apple and stare at the moon, and that's what you have to do. And guess what? 30 years later, you're still eating that apple and staring at the moon,
Yeah, but they're
because
gonna be
that's
like-
all you know.
and but at some point they're gonna be like, oh, other people are
They don't eat
eating
apples.
other things.
Yeah,
Well,
exactly.
when your book that tells you to eat apples and look at the moon tells you to eat apples and look at the moon, they're also telling you to make sure everyone else is doing that as well. So it's
Yeah,
your
that's
job
true.
to force it on people.
And if one day you just don't like apples anymore,
Yeah.
then what? Then what?
Screwed.
Yeah. So everyone gets to the point where they question, or they should at some point be like, okay, why am I eating this apple and staring at the moon?
Well, it's
And-
inevitable, and that's why, I don't know, like with my kids, I always tell them, a lot of people don't believe what we believe,
Yeah.
and that's fine. It's
Yeah.
not your job to change their mind.
That's right.
Because if not that you keep it a secret, but because you don't but they should just see the difference.
Yeah.
And know there's a difference.
Your actions will speak a lot louder than, your testimony is the way you live. And
you should never make people feel, like you're better than them.
No, because you're not.
Because you're not.
You're definitely not.
You're just trying something different that you believe in.
Right.
And this, I know real quick, because you have to go, Jacob, it's this is the only religion out there where you don't have to do anything. And that's the cool thing. It's, God meets you exactly where you are. You don't have to clean yourself to get in the shower, right? As you get in the shower and you get clean. So if you're struggling with things, if you're a drug addict, you don't have to get clean before you find God or before you meet Jesus. Like, you meet him exactly where you are. He meets you exactly where you need to be met, right? All you have to do is make that connection. You open that door and he'll come meet you there. But the important thing is that this is something that you cannot earn on your own. And the religions out there are, hey, if I do this, and if I am a good person, and if I do, I have to, certain religions, you have to go on a pilgrimage and you have to do so many things, and then you're, considered worthy to be in the elect group where you can earn your way into heaven. And that's not what this book says. This book says that this is a gift that's freely given. You're saved by grace.
Worthy anyway.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, some people think that the better that
and I
they
think
are.
that's like the biggest turnoff if you're raised Christian. Some of the Christians you grow up with, the families, the churches,
looking down on you and saying,
acting like they're better, and it gets political in churches, and it's, I think, the opposite of what it's supposed to be like.
Well, politicalness in churches definitely ruins it for a lot of people.
It does.
It's a big turnoff for a lot of people. But I can tell that we're running out of time because one of my guests is standing up and leaving.
So I have to. It's 4:57. I gotta be somewhere at 5.
You still got 2 minutes.
On
Sit
the
out.
nose.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you for being on the show. I appreciate that. We will pick this back up the next time that you're in town. And or maybe we'll just keep you out of it and enjoy dinner, I guess.
Thank you. I'm sorry. Yeah, no, I like being on this show. This is my second time, so I'd like to come on again.
All right, we'll have you on. We'll have a topic for next time, and we'll talk about some in-depth stuff.
Bring me some food.
Yeah, bring me some food. Yeah, why do I get no food?
Sounds good.
Oh, just bring her some
Just
food.
bring-
I'll bring
All that
some.
matters.
Yeah.
All right, so from all of us here at The Tongue with Dr. Myke, thank you, and we all wish Jacob has a great dinner.
Thank you.
All right, until next time, we'll see you then.